Okay, good afternoon. It is October 17th at 4:04. I'm a few minutes late. I kid you not. Before I come on live, I always try to like go watch something or get distracted for a few minutes. And I turned on Beat Bobby Flay and got distracted for a few minutes. So I'm a few minutes late starting today. We'll give it a second for people to come on. Um, it's a separate button to get Instagram going. So I'll get that going now. Um, okay, so yesterday we talked about the 98th. The 12th district state senate race. There's really no point in talking about the 98th because there is no real competition there. The Republicans not really running much of a campaign, and Maura Rader will win re-election there. Quick look at the presidential polling numbers. Nothing significant changing overnight. A Fox News poll, which was dated 10/14, has Trump up 2, and a Marquette poll, which is almost a week old now, but just posted, has it as a dead heat. Marist has Harris up 5. Rasmussen has Trump up 1. So the polls are all over the place right now. Remember something, if we are tied or close to it, Clinton at this time was up 7. Biden this time was up 9. So, Clinton won the national, both won the national vote. Biden won the Electoral College. Clinton did not. And so over those election cycles, we saw Republican support underestimated in the polling. So if that holds true and Harris is up or we're close to tied on a national level, that's not good news for the Democratic side. So next week, we'll talk more about the presidential race. This week, we're going to make it more about, or today, we're going to make it more about the 102nd district race. So this is a unique race for me. I've covered Brantford News for about 17 years now. I've covered moderated debates, know all the candidates. Many of them know well, and some of them I'm friends. And both of these people, Robin Comey and Ingraham, are people I know well. I've covered Robin since before the BECC, and then she ran that, and then she ran for the RTM, and she's involved with a lot of things, always involved with early childhood education stuff, children stuff. That was always her focus. Did a great job on that. Ray Ingraham I've covered almost as long, I think maybe a little bit longer on the RTM. He kind of moved up to RTM leader, to party leader, and now he's run for the second time for a state rep. So it's a tough race sometimes when you're used to covering local and you know all these people. And that's just life. My job is to report what I see and analyze the facts as they're in front of me. And so I think everybody expects that. I mean, I've had people that I've not endorsed be fine working together later, but this is just life. And we have a race that actually means a lot. As much as, we look at the presidential race, what happens here on a local level matters. When the first selectman goes to the state and says, we need to get money for a project, or we need help on passing a law, or help in some way, they have to go to somebody they can work with. And we've had very, very good luck over the last, I would say, 10, 15 years, where even with a Republican first selectman, our elected officials have been significantly Democrat. But the relationship with Sean Scanlon has been great, with Christine Cohen has been great. And they've been able to get really, really good, I would say, change-worthy things happening, new laws, money for playgrounds and events, and Walsh Intermediate School. And these projects have been a result of state officials and local officials working well together. So it's important what happens here. The problem with the 102nd district is that we have a giant elephant in the room. And obviously, the Democratic camp doesn't want to talk about it. And you have a Republican camp who, quite frankly, is just classy enough to not make it the center point of their election. If Ray Ingraham was not the candidate, I can't say that would be the case. The person Comey ran against 2 years ago, who was not qualified to hold office, he likely would have made it a center point of every discussion about this race and everything about her. That said, things happened. And so we would be doing a disservice to every listener, every voter, everybody that pays attention to this, if we didn't talk about the elephant in the room, and that is Robin Comey's drinking issues over time. Now, before the last election, one of them had taken place. So we're going to go over what happened, how I responded to it at the time, my thoughts at the time, and my thoughts now. And they're significantly different. I have a lot of sympathy for people making mistakes. I interned at the Capitol. I know what happens at the Capitol. I know especially what happens late in the session at the Capitol. They're there for long hours. Having a drink is not crazy. A lot of them have a bottle of Jack in their drawer. They're there, 20-hour days for the last week, and drinking happens. It's life. It's human. I don't see a significant problem with that. But Robin made a mistake, and then got unlucky in that it got picked up by Jimmy Kimmel. So I'll play for you the audio of what Jimmy Kimmel said. And then, do I have this? I do. We'll start here. Okay, so that was the audio of the Jimmy Kimmel segment. And I will tell you, as someone who knows her, when that first came out, I was shocked. I mean, we knew people drink. That's life. Not the end of the world. We're not going to knock somebody for that. I was more sad at the time. Not that she had done this. It's a normal thing. It happens. It's not the end of the world. But that Jimmy Kimmel happened to get it and then just, embarrass not just Robin, but her family and the state and the town. And it was a lot of things had to happen. Like, is she the first person in history to ever drink while testifying? Of course not. Is she probably one of the first ones to get picked up by Jimmy Kimmel and embarrassed nationally? No question about it. And that's unfortunate. And so my response at the time was, okay, people make mistakes. I get what happens at the Capitol. I've been there. It's not the end of the world. But I also thought that way with the assumption that when somebody goes through that, there's no way they're going to do something like that again. Like, if that happens, they're going home saying, okay, I'm giving up drinking. I'm not doing it again. And this is not going to happen. I embarrassed everybody involved. Let's not do it again. And so when I interviewed her for the next election, I did not even bring it up. I didn't think it was appropriate. We talked just about issues that had been beaten to death. There was no reason to make that a significant issue. Fast forward to last year, And Robin apparently testified or was at the Capitol, left, stopped at a restaurant. I don't know what that event was, but stopped at a restaurant. And on the way home, hit a car in downtown Hartford, flipped over, hit another car coming in the opposite direction, flipped over. People ran to help. The cops pulled her over, did all the sobriety tests you could. She was clearly beyond drunk. Every news media posted police cam, the body cam from her being completely gone. Literally joking that she needs to change the laws in her favor based on this outcome. And, that changes things. And when you have an elected official whose job it is to represent other people, who has the biggest of warning signs you can have, publicly humiliated on national television, and that wasn't enough to stop incidents like this happening. You flipped your car over. Now, there's a bunch of questions we're left with. Hartford to Brantford is an hour ride. How many times was that trip taken from Hartford to Brantford drunk? How drunk, how often is the first question. The second question that I have, and I keep coming back to, is this. I understand that people will say it's a disease. Alcoholism is a disease. Okay. But the difference between alcoholism being a disease that you get a slap on the wrist for and 15 years in jail for manslaughter is just pure luck. And I come back to, if you were that close to, and if you watch the video, and all of the news channels showed this, people were walking there seconds earlier. Like, this was not in the middle of a field somewhere. This was a highly populated area in downtown Hartford where she's completely drunk. She's now being sued. The restaurant who served her is being sued because somebody was injured. How no one was hurt, I have no idea. And to those that want to defend this behavior, they understand they're not defending the behavior, they're defending her as a candidate. What's the level that's okay and what's the level that's not okay? I do not subscribe to the idea that if you call something a disease, anything goes. Don't subscribe to that. Had she hit somebody, she'd be in jail right now and could not run for office. In fact, after the incident where she was drunk testifying at the Capitol, Matt Ritter, who was the head of the House legislature, basically on a news channel said, I don't want people thinking they can get away with doing anything here. And they spoke out against drinking at the Capitol. Well, the question is, apparently you can. Apparently, if you're part of the majority, you can not just drink while testifying on behalf of your constituents. You can get completely shit-faced, hit cars in downtown Hartford, flip over, and just count your unbelievable blessings that there are not dead bodies or serious, serious injuries to others. The line between, oh, it's a disease, let's get her help, and oh my God, she killed somebody in manslaughter for 15 years is minuscule. And I have a lot of questions on how the Democratic Party put her back up. When this happened, Matt Ritter removed her from every single committee. And so here's why that's a problem, besides the obvious. Obviously, the idea of somebody, this wasn't 20 years ago. This wasn't somebody who, I had this issue when I was 16, 17, 18, 20, and now I'm 45, and I've overcome this. This isn't 20 years ago. It's a year ago. And clearly, if she was running for the first time, she would likely never get the nomination. Hi, just last year, I flipped my car over downtown Hartford, and I'm lucky that I didn't kill somebody, but I did injure somebody who's suing me. Oh, now I want to be your candidate for office. The party would probably say, get out of here. So if she wasn't an incumbent, there's no way she'd be on this ballot. But here's how all of this impacts us as her constituents. I talked about this at length yesterday when it came to Christine Cohen. One of the advantages of having somebody in there for a length of time is they move up the ranks. Over time, they get more and more power. We saw this with Sean Scanlon. We saw this with Lonnie Reed. We saw this with Pat Willits. We saw this with Christine Cohen, who, by the way, just started with the Senate, didn't go to the House first. But in time, you're there. You get to know what's going on. You get more clout. You move up, you move up, you move up, which means as a town, when we have issues, when a constituent has an issue, we're now going to somebody that has significant clout in Hartford. We watched that with Sean Scanlon. Sean Scanlon is now the state comptroller. We watched that with Christine Cohen, who has enormous influence in the state Senate. With Robin Comey, we have nothing to show for 8 years in office. She has no clout. If she went for a favor from the governor, it ain't going to get done. And so the question is, are you really serving? I get that you have issues and you can talk about, hey, I got through them. I went to rehab. I'm good. I don't drink anymore. But I question the judgment that after you have a public national embarrassment, that wasn't enough of a wake-up call to say, I'm not drinking again. Even in that statement, you said, I had anxiety and I'm exhausted and then I was drinking. No, you were drinking. To be that drunk testifying that way, you were drunk. You were gone. That's not a glass of wine with dinner drinking. And we know that you have a history of drinking, which means one glass of wine didn't do shit for you. You had a ton of liquor that night. And then to get back in your car, and I have to be, it's interesting. In one of the news reports, they have a video of her testifying at a committee hearing about an hour and a half before this incident. I don't know if the exact time frame. So you're telling me she was in a committee meeting, hopefully sober, went out to a restaurant, got drunk enough to flip her car over in downtown Hartford, and again, be unbelievably lucky that there are not dead bodies. The line between, hey, I have a disease, I need to get this fixed, and hey, I'm doing 15 years is nothing in this case. And now a year later, she's back on the ballot. Now, I have very little respect for the Branford Democratic Party. That's not a secret. But how she was put back, and I happen to know that there were plenty in the party who did not want her back on. I get that. There's no way she should have been back on. How the state party didn't come down and say, there is no way we're putting this person back on the ballot. And that would apply to Robin or a Republican. If we're going to just be honest here, if a white male Republican had done this, what would the Democratic Party be doing right now? Nobody's stupid. They'd be attacking mercilessly. So Robin is unbelievably lucky to be running against Ray Ingraham. The Republican Party in Branford is Ray, Jamie Cosgrove, people who do not do, and they back away from this kind of stuff. But it's fair game. And it's what she did. It's the record. It's not me saying it. It's every news site there is. Go ahead and Google it yourself. Watch the videos yourself. It was news constantly. In fact, I covered it less than everybody else. It was hard for me to cover it because I know Robin. She's not a bad person. I tell you when people are bad people. Robin's not a bad person. She's a good person. She's a good mom. She's done a lot of good things for the town. But this might be over her head, and she shouldn't be, based on these actions, still representing Branford, especially when the result was she was removed from every committee hearing and she's lost any level of respectability she'd have in Hartford. If the first selectman or local people need help in Hartford, we're going to Christine Cohen. We may call Sean Scanlon. We may go to Moira Rader. No one's calling Robin Comey. She just doesn't have that clout anymore. The question for me is, at what point do your actions have any consequences? I hear all the time from the Democrats, Donald Trump could do anything and still get elected. Well, apparently you can also flip your car drunk in downtown Hartford and narrowly miss killing somebody and still get elected by the party. And because we have a lot of party line voters, it's very likely she may win again. She's very much the favorite coming into this race. Now, even with this, if she was running 2 years ago against the candidate that she was running against 2 years ago, who I wanted nowhere near a seat in any way, shape, or form, it would have been hell for me. Because she should not be on a ballot, and that person shouldn't be on the ballot, and it would have been a nightmare. But you do have somebody who has not just paid his dues, but has been an excellent person in regards to handling constituent issues, representing Branford, getting projects done for the last 10, 15 years, and who she's running against this year, Ray Ingraham. Now, I've already said that I know both of these people well. Ray Ingraham is not a friend of mine. He's a very good friend of mine. I have enormous amount of respect for Ray Ingraham as a person. I think those that know him would agree. And I'll tell you why. Part of it is I've watched him in action for the last 15 years. He's not going to give you an Obama speech. He's not going to stand up and give you a rah-rah and motivate everybody. He's not Sean Scanlon. He's not going to be Obama. That's not who he is. But you'd be hard-pressed to find someone of either party who won't tell you how he shows up all the time when there's an issue. In fact, he probably shows up more often than he should. When there's an issue, he's there the best that he can. And he has a history of helping get a lot of things done in this town. When the vote had to pass the RTM to get senior centers done, it was him. To get Walsh Intermediate School done, it was him as the majority leader. To get Cosgrove Animal Shelters done, it was Jamie Cosgrove calling Ray Ingraham and saying, we need to get this past the RTM. It's also Ray who consistently has worked well with the leaders on the other side. He has a very strong reputation for working with Democrats. On a personal note, he came from nothing. Raised in East Haven, then Brantford most of his life, from no money. And the biggest thing I can say about him is look at his daughters. He has 3 daughters that are unbelievably impressive. Members of the community, smart, educated. Ray came from nothing, went into the military, did not go to school, learned a skill in the military, turned that into a career. I think the 3 daughters, between the 3 of them, have 5 degrees, multiple masters, families, unbelievable careers, all of them, or I think 2 of them in nonprofits. One's a teacher, one works for a nonprofit. It's amazing to see what Ray and his wife have done in raising daughters coming from what Ray came from. And I take that seriously. Knowing both of these candidates, I like Robin. I've always liked Robin. I've defended Robin Comey on this podcast many times in the past. If the person's name was Joe Smith and they had 1 year been publicly humiliated and embarrassed the town and their constituents by being drunk testifying at the Capitol, and the very next year got in a car in Hartford, hit a car, flipped over, hit another car, injured that person, was being sued, while they were being questioned by the police, joked about changing the laws in her favor, the alcohol and drunk driving laws in her favor, and didn't resign? And instead, the party said, we're going to put you back up again? Now, there's a reason why I get that she's running. I don't know the exact number, so I'm going to look up CT after 10 years. Looking up. So you get significant benefits after 10 years of service. I'm not going to go through the exact benefits now, but they're like lifelong health care, a certain payment, really, really good. I don't have them listed. Oh, state legislative compensation retirement benefits. So Connecticut listed 10 years of credited service. You get retirement benefits. That it's weird that even in the retirement benefits, they charge mileage back and forth to Hartford. There's significant benefits that come with getting to 10 years. And Robin Comey's at 8. So I understand her running. I understand the benefits. She's self-employed. I'm self-employed. I get it. Healthcare is the number one concern that I have. Getting those benefits would likely be huge for her personally. As a constituent, I don't know how she's the candidate. As someone she represents, I don't know how you're not publicly embarrassed on a late night talk show that got picked up, by the way, on other talk shows. Like I think Bill Maher also had a segment on it. And that wasn't enough. Your judgment at that time wasn't enough to say, I'm going to stop drinking. I know people that have a drink and yell too loud at their spouse and then say, I'm never drinking again. But that wasn't enough. And then somehow in an hour, hour and a half to 2 hours, whatever it was, from the time she was in session to the time she was driving, that shit-faced. I don't know what else to say. It's hard. It's harder for me because I've dreaded doing this podcast because I like Robin. I blame myself a little bit because when I interviewed her 2 years ago, I deliberately did not bring it up. I wanted to make this about issues. And so now, as a reward for behavior that would destroy any Republican running, she's going to run and then get benefits the rest of her life. In the meantime, Branford has a representative who has almost no clout in Hartford and no ability to get much done. After 8 years in Hartford, Lonnie Reed was a name you had to reckon with. After the years that Christine Cohen's there, she's a name you have to reckon with. Robin Comey can't put up any bill that's anything but a, of course people are voting for it kind of bill. Blue is our favorite color kind of stuff. Like pushing EpiPens to be somewhere. That's fine. That's great. But after 8 years, you should be like on budgets and have some influence in these meetings and in these committees. And we have none. And I can tell you from experience, if there's an issue in town hall and they want to go to somebody at the state, they're going to Christine Cohen. That's the call that's being made. In the past, we would have gone to Robin Comey's predecessor. We would have gone to Lonnie Reed. Because Lonnie Reed, over time, moved up the ranks and got power in Hartford. But the way to never get power in Hartford is to flip your car over drunk and humiliate the party and humiliate the town you represent. And if she was running against a terrible opponent, that's a really tough decision to make. But when you're running against somebody who is as qualified as Ray Ingraham, you have a question about the senior center, he knows that he was there. He helped pass it. The community house, he was helped pass it. Walsh Intermediate School helped pass it. Cosgrove Animal Shelter, even the Blackstone Library, all these projects that passed, every budget that passed, Ingraham was intimately involved in. I would say his weakness is he shows up for too many things. There are issues that he cannot possibly solve, or people who are clearly politically motivated. We just want to attack him. And he still puts his neck in and goes to some meetings. Even I'm like, why are you going to that? He's like, well, they called and asked. He takes on too much sometimes. I'm not expecting him to give an Obama speech. But I'm not expecting that from Robin either. But when it comes to constituent issues, you have a guy who has paid his dues for 15 years. He's paid his dues for 30, 40 years in raising kids and managing softball teams and getting to every sporting event known to man and doing so much for this town. And you know what he's never done? He's never embarrassed us on Jimmy Kimmel. He never put anybody's life at risk flipping over his car in downtown Hartford. I don't have to ask, Ray, how many times did you come from Hartford to Branford drunk? How many other laws did you testify drunk? How many phone calls did you get from your constituents that you didn't respond to, or emails you didn't respond to, or times where you just incoherent late at night and couldn't give a basic answer to a question? I don't ask that question to Ray. I don't have to. We have 8 years of Robin Comey. And I have to sit here as someone who likes Robin Comey and say, what do we have to show for it? Because after 8 years, we had influence with Lonnie Reed. After 8 years, we have influence with Christine Cohen. After more than 8 years, we have influence with Sean Scanlon. We don't have any with Robin Comey. I was proud to endorse Christine Cohen yesterday. Christine Cohen is the better candidate in that race, in the 12th district. There's no question. I'm also proud to endorse Ray Ingraham, who is the no-brainer to vote for. Now we have a system where, people vote for their party. And a large number of people look at the top and vote for Trump and vote the Republicans, or vote for Harris and vote the Democrats. And so it's likely Comey will win. That's just a numbers game. Everybody involved knows that. I'm embarrassed that the Democratic Party put Comey back on the ticket. After, the party leaders all came out and said the steps had to be taken after her first incident. And in the second incident, how deplorable it was, how awful it was. Steps have to be taken. But apparently nothing actually results in this person shouldn't be in the legislature. How state Democrats didn't come down to Branford and say, no, find somebody else, I have no idea. And quite frankly, if someone's dealing with that, and they've shown terrible, terrible judgment multiple times, they should not be representing the 20,000 or so people in Branford, because it's not the whole town, it's only 5 of the 7 districts that she's asking to represent. And I certainly don't believe, with her record, we should say, oh, by the way, the taxpayer should cover your health insurance for the rest of your life either. It's just not right. And when you have somebody there who has paid his dues, done the work, his fingerprints are on all these projects we see happening in town, he has the trust of Jamie Cosgrove, you have to vote for Ray Ingraham. So my request for you is that even if you're a Democrat, when you vote for Harris, like I am, on the top of your ticket, you scroll down, you look at that state legislative race. Very likely, the only Republican that I will have on my ballot is Ray Ingraham, and I will vote for him very proudly. He should be your next state rep. And we can't just ignore the actions of somebody because they were a Democrat, or we like them, or was a party we're a member of. And I hope the voters remember that. This was a hard podcast to do. I hope Robin does incredibly well in whatever endeavor she has in her life. And if she's a state rep, I hope she proves me wrong and blows us all away and gets clout and responsibility up there and shows that she's overcome this and doing great. But when you have somebody as qualified as Ray Ingraham, it doesn't make sense to stay on that path. It makes sense to find somebody who has shown over and over and over again he cares about the residents of this district, cares about constituent issues, shows up day after day after day, and wants to get the job done. Okay, that's it for this week. We'll be back on Monday. We will talk more about getting a bunch of questions and discussion topics for the presidential race. I will talk more about that on Monday. If there are questions about this podcast or questions about anything else with regards to the election, let me know. Until then, oh, by the way, to those who came last night to the community house, and thank you very much again to Capone's Pizza Bar for providing a pizza for that. Really good. I would argue Capone's is the best pizza in Branford till the day I die. It's just really, really good pizza. But it was great to see it. More events. Great job by Alex Paluzzi and his staff in getting more things happening down there at the community house and getting our seniors involved, what have you. Let's hope that that continues. Until next week, guys, have a great weekend. The weather is supposed to be spectacular. Get outside, come play tennis, whatever you want. I'll see you over the weekend.